Welcome back to the Berean Brotherhood. Today we're going to do something a little bit different because I've discovered the power of technology on my web browser. Look at this. You guys ready for this? This is so cool. Whoa! Whoa! So today we're just going to review a quick video of Jennifer Aniston talking with Dax Shepard on his Armchair Expert podcast. Really cool podcast. Got nothing but love for Dax Shepard and Jennifer Aniston. In this house, Friends is a national treasure. End of story. We will not tolerate any Jennifer Aniston slander whatsoever on this channel. And I don't quite know why this segment of her talking about religion and spirituality on Dax Shepard's podcast is suddenly making the rounds. It's a really cool interview because they talk about a bunch of stuff like celebrity and transcendental meditation and paparazzi and family, and spirituality is just one part of that conversation. So we're going to skip most of the interview and we're just going to go to the religion and spirituality part. One thing you can do if you're a friend of the channel is hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. Help us to keep pushing forward the gospel of Jesus Christ and to be true friends to the rest of the world. I had to go for it. All right, let's jump in.
The truth is we're all here, this is kind of wild that we're all here.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. We're all these bodies. Mm-hmm. We're these we're all made of what, atoms?
Yeah.
This is all energy. This is all energy.
Yeah.
You know, and believe it or not. And then there's something that's bigger than us. And the other thing that is also so crazy to me is that we are every human being on this entire planet made up of the exact same shit.
Yeah.
And yet we have figured out a way.
It's just in awe of this creation. Like, look at us. Look at everything. Like, look at me. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at what we are. This is miraculous, even if you don't hold to religious beliefs. Psalm chapter 8, verse 3-4 puts it perfectly when it says, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of? Human beings that you care for them." Let's continue.
These wonderful brains that we've been gifted by, I don't know, whatever that is.
Gifted and cursed.
To do what we have done. And I mean, I was driving over here and I was thinking to myself, I get sad.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And I get sad that there's so much
fake and arbitrary difference. And
yes.
Yeah.
And where does it come from and who creates it? It's like, hey man, believe whatever you want to believe.
And Dax says, well, this is just kind of fake and arbitrary. It's meaningless. It's just human constructs. There's no reality to it. It's just people deciding to fight. And I could not disagree with it anymore. Like, none of this is fake or arbitrary. You have 8 billion people on the planet trying to determine what reality is, what their purpose or non-purpose is. Of course, there's going to be conflict. These are the most important, meaningful questions that humans have ever or will ever encounter. Questions about who they are, what their identity is, were they put here for a purpose, were they not put here for a purpose? So I get the fact that he thinks a lot of this conflict could just be avoided if we all just like kumbaya and held hands and got together. But I really think that's dismissive of the human curiosity for why things are the way they are. So I got to disagree with Dax here. I don't think it's fake and arbitrary whatsoever. I think a lot of the explanations are fake, possibly arbitrary, but I think humans are just recognizing common sense idea that this is all too perfectly orchestrated for us to just be here by accident. And I think those disagreements are some of the most important disagreements that we can have as humanity.
You do you. But at the end of the day, you do think.
Yes.
Even if our skin is a shade darker, lighter, hair dip, we are all made up of the exact same wonderful stuff.
And we're embarrassingly predictable given where we come from. So it's like we think we have this really well-sorted identity. Yeah. And then you go like, well, but if you give me your zip code, I can tell you with like 90% likelihood exactly what your opinions that you've thought of really well will be. And then you go like, so maybe I've been trying to read between the lines as I've watched a lot of interviews with you, and maybe rightly or wrongly, I have felt like we agree on that. Like my biggest thing that bothers me isn't any one of my issues that I also care about. It's just like, how the fuck do we get out of this? This is just like,
but this is a typical logic 101 genetic fallacy from the get. It's a logically fallacious way of thinking about problems. So the genetic fallacy basically says you judge something as either good or bad on the basis of where it comes from or from whom it came. The fallacy avoids the argument by shifting focus onto something or someone's origins. I'll give you an example of this. Let's say if your grandma's a little bit grouchy and she tells you don't put your fingers in the electric socket or you'll get shocked or electrocuted. And you say, well, my grandma's a grouchy lady, so of course she's always going to describe any experience I have as negative. Putting my fingers in a socket, of course she's going to see it from a negative perception. She's grouchy. Everything she says is negative. That's a genetic fallacy. It doesn't matter if the origin point is tainted or perceived to be corrupted. Is the content of the message true or not? It doesn't matter if 10 million people come out of India and believe in Hinduism or not. What matters is whether or not Hinduism itself is true. So it's just a logically bad argument to say that because someone comes from somewhere, they're going to believe something guaranteed. And that thing is false because A, that's not true. There are tons and tons of liberal American citizens who hail from conservative cities or states and vice versa. There are tons of people who come from religious households. Like Jennifer Aniston says that she comes from a family that was Greek Orthodox and she doesn't believe in those values anymore. So it's not true that wherever you come from pretty much guarantees what you believe. And the interviewers here are literally evidence of that. And even if it were true, it doesn't matter because that doesn't tell us anything about the content and truth value of the beliefs themselves. Let's keep going.
Worse every day and everyone's yelling louder and louder. How do we get out?
And everything seems very Pollyanna, like any kind of thought you have, but it is, how do we get out of it? And that, that when you say about the spirituality, I think the reason I lean more towards TM or that world of.
Just pause real quick. TM means transcendental meditation. It's kind of a Hindu pseudoscience. So you kind of meditate for 10 minutes a day and you keep repeating mantras over and over and over again. It's supposed to help relieve your blood pressure, kind of similar to other meditation techniques. But that's basically what they're talking about when they say TM.
Whatever faith is to me personally, is because, I'm Greek Orthodox. I was raised I went to, the church, Greek church on Sundays. And my yaya had all of the pictures of the women in black that terrified me and gave me nightmares and her beads. And she would talk to the wall of all these people. And
it's a little morbid.
It seems it, doesn't it? But for her, it kept her going. And she died at 98. Something, the Greeks are doing something right.
Yeah.
And
that does seem a little morbid. I mean, they're all like wearing black. It's like one of those horror, the nun movies. So obviously these sound like bad experiences she had in the Greek Orthodox faith. And it's interesting how in your formative years as a child, these kind of negative experiences can really affect the credibility of the beliefs themselves.
I was christened at St. Sophia's and, they drink the holy water, which is basically wine. And I vomited and she's like scooping up the vomit because it's sacred and the body
negative
of Christ
experience
is in there and that's the blood of Christ. And she's like, and then she's like old at that point already. And so, I was in the car and I had just had wine and bread at like 1 or whatever.
I would have thought there might be like a poltergeist in you. If you rejected it, you might be evil or a vamp.
Or I could, who knows?
Who knows? TBD.
That's all up for grabs.
That's right.
I completely get it. I get it. Like these are like kind of horrible experiences. Like she's vomiting and they're picking it up and it's just kind of gross and you're not expected to be perfect. But this is the reason why we have to really fight to keep our testimony as clean as possible and to fix and damage control and repair the damage we do when we do sin, because these kind of impressions could last a lifetime and they could affect the truth of the gospel because somebody sees an incongruence between the actual truth of Jesus Christ, his message of salvation for humanity, his love, the chance of redemption we have to find the Lord through him again. And they can kind of tie it together in this parasitic relationship with negative human experiences they had with other humans.
Life ain't over just yet.
But I want to say something really quick because I think that is the answer, because we talk a lot about status here in in-group, out-group. Dax was the anthropology major, so in-group, out-group comes up a lot.
Too much, you could argue.
I won't say that, but...
Wait, which comes up? Say again?
In-group, out-group.
What is in-group, out-group?
Because we're very social primates and we're kind of designed to live in a group of 100. That was our in-group. And the out-group, whatever group arrived, needed to be taken very seriously and with a lot of skepticism. It's not like you could just trust a stranger, you know? So we have a lot of evolutionary things built in. We're really immediately good at identifying who the out-group is and identifying who who the in-group is. And so we have all this wiring, and that's like tribalism when you hear tribe.
Notice the language Dax is using to describe evolutionary processes. He's describing the way humans behave from an accidental naturalist perspective, right? We evolved and we changed over time and we adapted. And so we've developed these behaviors today in the modern century. And if you go back far enough, you could see survival reasons why these behaviors came to the forefront. When he's describing this unintentional process, he's forced, almost handcuffed, to use the language of design, right? Because there's two competing hypotheses there. There's either it was an accident or it wasn't. There was either our creation and behavior and mechanisms were unintentional, or there was an intended being or figure who created and designed us that way. Words like wiring, words like built, words like designed, these all lend evidence to the idea that they're just too conveniently placed together. So to him, the evidence suggests that we kind of adapted over time and became these things. But to me, if I see a car with a steering wheel, with Michelin tires, with an engine, with an exhaust pipe, that much more begs the question about how was this designed than it does that it came about accidentally, because it's almost illogical to assume that it just put itself together. So in the tribe and out the tribe could be accidental, it could be naturalist, or it could be the Bible's explanation for it, which I think is a much more rational explanation. And then, of course, one of the most tragic verses in the entire Bible, verse 8, now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then God says, what happened to your brother? Where is he? And Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. So the Bible completely rejects this idea about in and out, just tribal survival. We can point to 4 billion examples in human history when survival was not at stake at all, and humans just went after whatever greedy, evil, selfish thing they wanted to get. It had nothing to do with starving to death. It had nothing to do with like a conflict over like territory or just being able to reproduce and have your offspring flourish in the planet. If you're honest in watching this, think about all the times you've done something evil and eliminate the times that it had something to do with survival, right? So I love Dax, but I mean, the explanation is just it's just insufficient. It's insufficient. I've known some violent guys. I mean, good guys who were reformed and doing their best, but they would tell me that they just enjoyed hitting people. Like they just enjoyed violence. Like that they weren't even threatened sometimes by their victims or by their targets. They just enjoyed the violence and conflict that comes.
Tribalism is really in-group, out-group thinking. So like this political thing, it's like, this is my group and that's your group. And we're just stuck with this terrible vestigial evolution that we somehow got to figure out how to get out of in-group, out-group, because we don't live that way anymore.
But if we were,
sometimes outside of the church, you'll see like non-believers kind of grasping for straws and just trying to understand, like even by their own belief set, it doesn't make sense, right? If we're built and evolved to survive, why do we have all of these self-destructive, evil, greedy tendencies? All our behaviors should have evolved for a survival instinct only, right? Our tongue evolved to give us taste so we can taste good food and bad food, hearing so we can hear sounds from our environment accidentally, eye so we could have vision of threats or benefits coming our way. But this human behavior, I don't get it. It should have evolved the same way. It should have been completely focused on survival. Why do humans keep doing these evil things? Why can't we get past these differences? Romans 1:21 offers the truth about this. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being and birds and animals and reptiles. Verse 24 says, therefore God gave them over in the sinful desires of their heart to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator who is forever praised. Again, not to go into too much detail, but in my life, I've struggled with maintaining relationships, especially with really, really amazing people, because my greed and my evil were so dominating that it's taken me decades to crush it down to the point of being a reliable guy. It has nothing to do with survival. People are evil. The Bible says that the human heart is evil and the only solution is the Lord. You could do as much kumbaya and let's get along as we want. You're never going to find a solution to human conflict and evil.
Remember that in-group is exactly what you said. We're all just we are all one in-group.
We're all the group. Is that just not as fun?
Yeah.
Is that
know,
just not as
exactly.
interesting?
They're like really struggling to like, I don't get it. We should all be part of the same group. We're all on the same team. They don't get it.
Exactly.
So that's why I think this sort of spirituality or these sort of new age or whatever you call it, super agers, what does that say up there? I'm trying to read that.
You know, we got to
read it
maybe
as
get rid of these
super
books because
agers.
they're very distracting to people.
distracted
Yeah,
a
a lot of
lot
people
of
in the middle
people.
like, well, that's when he pulled out the firearm. King surrender foolproof. That's what, no, hold on. You were about to say someone shot
No,
you?
but-
Yeah, but what is this book I'm seeing?
No, but religion, that's why it was my grandmother, Greek Orthodox, but religions, they all had the judgments about who you were with or how and it just felt like if religion is something that divides people based on absolutely nothing factual
Right.
Yeah.
about the human being and their heart.
The lottery of
And-
what house you were brought home to as a baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you grew up in this home and it represented that, and that's what you learned, and so
Yeah.
that's what you then go out and you believe. And critical thinking, free thinking isn't sort of allowed, or it's condemned, or told put fear of God that you're going to go to hell for something.
Christians invented the first universities. Religious thinkers were the founding fathers of the scientific revolution. We invented hospitals. We invented colleges. We invented Western ethics. It's just mind-blowing because these seem like such cool people, but they don't get that even the ideas they're using to criticize Christianity or religion in general are religious ideas. The idea of freedom of speech, the idea you can express yourself, the idea that all humans have value. Where did those ideas come from? The idea that you have more moral standing if you're able to openly express and tolerate other ideas is a distinctly, fundamentally Christian virtue. From a casual perspective, these aren't philosophers, they're just saying what they casually feel. But to me, watching this, it almost feels like they're complaining about toothbrushes while brushing their teeth with them. Like, you can't hate religion and organize value sets around spiritual beliefs when they're literally the foundation for why you're morally opposed to religion in the first place. So it's super duper important for us as Christians to remember that even though we are fighting against ideas and logic and discussions and back and forth, it's really a spiritual battle for the hearts and minds of the men and women on this planet, more so than it is a kind of logical, theological back and forth. And 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4, one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible, breaks it down even better. It says, the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. This is a spiritual battle for the ultimate destination of all of humanity, standing before God in judgment for the rebellious, evil things they do, and sometimes try and rationalize through groupthink and evolutionary fairy tales. And it's up to us to see non-believers not as our enemy, not as someone we have to insult and destroy. Most non-believers think it's kind of their purpose to be good people and the best versions of themselves possible, and there's no judgment or wrath coming. It's our job as Christians to learn the Bible like the back of our hand, to learn the logical meat and bones of these kinds of arguments so we have a solid, rational answer and response to them. This is the Berean Brotherhood. You know the deal. If you're a friend of the show, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Love you guys. God bless you guys. See you next week.